Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, Own the Network, Network Management for MSP. I'm Matt Riley, Marketing Manager at Datto, and today I'm joined by Jackie Murphy, Vice President of Marketing at Auvik Networks, and Michael Palma, Channel Development Manager at Datto. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items to address. This presentation is being recorded and will be made available for on-demand viewing on the Datto website within 24 hours. All attendees will be notified when the presentation is available. We'll also be holding questions in the presentation, so if you have questions for enter them in the chat. And we go to webinar. Answers the questions as time allows. So welcome, Jackie Murphy. Take it away, Jackie.
Thanks so much. Out to our MSP friends in the market, so would love some feedback if you guys are willing after the webinar to give us some input on whether or not this is a presentation that provides value to you, because at the end of the day, that's really what we're striving for. So thank you for joining. To give you a little bit of context, we've been working closely with Datto for the past while now. We are absolutely thrilled to see them leaning in on the networking side of the business. It really validates what we've been hearing from a number of our MSP partners, and that is that networks are becoming increasingly important. So today, we'll be talking to you a little bit about how you can own your clients' networks. And by own, we mean take full responsibility for the network that you have committed to take care of. So what we'll be going through is exactly what it takes to own a client network, the challenges that you'll face in owning the client network, and then how to overcome those challenges in order to deliver cost-effective and efficient network management and managed network services to your client base. So a little bit about Auvik before we get started. We are very focused on network management for MSPs. We've been doing this for a number of years now, and that is our main focus. We are also 100% working with channels, so we don't sell directly to corporate IT. We sell to MSPs, and we're headquartered in Waterloo, Canada. So it's a little bit cold up here, but melting a little bit today, which is nice. We have about 100 employees currently, and we are over 1,000 partners that we're working with. And we also have a polar bear mascot named Nanook, just a fun fact. Nanook travels with us all around the world, bringing the beauty of Auvik out to MSPs, and we have a lot of fun with him. So you may have seen him at some of the shows in person. And you might ask why we have a polar bear as our mascot. Well, it's partially because we're up in Canada, but it's also primarily because networks are scary. And we found that when we first started working with MSPs, a number of people were really scared to speak with us about networks because it's a bit of a big black box. And so we figured we needed some way to get people to come and interact with us, and Nanook really serves that purpose for us. Makes networks less scary to have a cute, cuddly polar bear as your mascot. So please feel free to come talk to us. So we're going to start our presentation with this big, bold statement that today businesses don't worry about their networks. And this statement might be a little bit confusing for you. But we'll tell you a little bit about why we believe this. So we believe this because they've hired you. So they don't worry about their networks. They've hired you to worry about their networks. And more, we're finding that small, medium-sized companies and even enterprise customers are turning to MSPs to manage their networks. And we at Auvik are betting that this trend is going to continue. We truly believe that this is the right direction for things to be going, and that's where we've placed our chips. So networks are becoming increasingly important, because everything is moving to the cloud. So all of the applications, all of the data that your clients are using on a day-to-day to get their business needs done is hosted in the cloud now. And so effectively, because you're responsible for managing their networks, you are the gateway to everything that they need in order to do what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. The network is the lifeline to their productivity, and without access to the network, their businesses grind to a halt. But again, they're not worried because they know you've got it covered. That's why they pay you. So if you do have it covered, they focus on their business. They really don't think about the network. It really should just be like electricity. You flick the switch, the lights come on. You show up at work, the network is there and ready to do their work. All employees have access to everything that they need, and everybody's happy. If you don't have it covered, they focus on your business. So your business as an MSP. And they become frustrated, angry, they potentially lose patience with you, and they potentially lose that trusted relationship that you've worked so hard to establish. So when we selected this image for the presentation, we were kind of coming at it from two perspectives. One was from the perspective of the client, super frustrated that they can't get their work done. But the other is perhaps this is an image of the MSP who is so incredibly frustrated with the network because the network and the difficulty of dealing with the network is so incredibly frustrating, and it's jeopardizing the relationship that you've worked so hard to build. So with all those things being said, how do you actually own a client's network? How do you make sure that you've got complete control over that network, that your clients are covered, they're happy, they're not questioning whether or not you've got things under control? And so we believe that there are three things that you need to do to own your client's network. And we've named these the three mantras of owning your client's network. So I'll take you through those. So the first mantra is to know before your client. So this means if there's an issue on the network, you are calling the client before they call you. You should always know before they know. Be proactive versus reactive and get out in front of the issue before you're notified by your client. The second mantra is to provide strategic guidance. So this essentially means moving your relationship with your clients from completing tickets, reactive tickets, to being more and support their business objectives. So working with your clients to shape, evolve, and grow their networks in advance of their business needs in order to keep them at optimal performance. And then finally, the third, managing risk, and specifically risk. So we all know that stuff happens. Even if you're following diligently mantras 1 and 2, there are things that are ultimately out of your control. So things like natural disasters, power outages, hardware failures. You essentially need a plan for what to do when these types of things happen. So realistically, if you've got all three of these mantras covered already in your business, fantastic, great job. You are absolutely in the minority. We've met with over 1,000 MSPs, and these things are not always being done because they are really hard to do. So why are they hard to do? We'll get into that, but it's even harder to do these three things when at the same time you're trying to build an efficient, scalable, and profitable MSP business. So let's dig into those. So these things are really hard to do, specifically on the networking side of things, because network management is super manual, and I'm sure you have all experienced the manual processes that you need to do to keep your client networks healthy. Working through CLIs, drawing physio diagrams, manually tracing wires. Is really a double whammy in terms of cost and time. Also, with networks, there are a few standards. So there are tons of standards, and often the networks that you're dealing with have gear from multiple different vendors, and Data will talk about this a little bit in their presentation in terms of best practices. But when you inherit a new client, they often have hardware from many different vendors, many different languages in that network, different OSs. There's differences in operability, or lack of interoperability between the different devices, and you as an MSP are essentially expected to be a magician. Understand all of this gear, understand how to work with all of this gear, best practices, how to configure and troubleshoot all of these different types of devices, and it's really quite unrealistic. And as we all know, there's a serious gap in this industry, and this is only getting worse as fewer people are choosing to get into IT. So it's super hard to find IT staff, they're expensive, and again, it's even harder to find people with networking skills. If you're lucky, then you have someone on your team already, or a number of people on your team already that have these skills. But again, these people on your team are often burdened with all of the different networking tasks. And typically networking tasks are quite difficult to resolve. And part of that is you have no idea what the issue is, because you have very little visibility into those core network devices. It's a big black hole. And so just trying to find what the issue might be could take you days or hours or even days. And ideally, you're using your most senior techs to help you grow the business, as opposed to just digging down into these big dark holes to figure out what the issue might be. So at the end of the day, you want to know how to own your clients' networks in a very efficient and cost-effective way. And this is where Auvik comes in. So here at Auvik, we are laser focused on helping MSPs own their clients' networks. And I'm going to take you back to those 3 mantras that we talked about and talk to you a little bit about how Auvik drills down into each of these different areas to help you build that efficient and effective managed network services. So coming back to mantra number 1, to always know before your clients know. With Auvik, so essentially what you do with Auvik is you install a small piece of software on your client network. It automatically crawls the network, discovers all of the devices, discovers all of their configurations, and based on all of this information, it draws you this network map. This network map takes 15 minutes to a half an hour to draw. And from that map, you can see devices, how they're configured, how they're connected, and it's a very beautiful user interface that you can use to navigate any issues that might be happening on the network. Some of our clients actually use the network mapping functionality to do prospecting of new clients. So they'll install Auvik on a prospect network and get a very good idea of all of the things that they need to know in order to do appropriate quoting, and strategizing about what might need to happen to a new client. With this mapping feature, we also pull real-time inventory, so you'll know about all of the different devices on the network. And Auvik comes pre-configured with about 50 different network-focused alerts. So out of the box, one network drawn, you'll be aware of any existing issues on the network. Of course, all of these alerts can be configured so that you can customize them for your specific client instance. We have one MSP partner who likes to talk about their concept of day 0 support. And what they do is they try to resolve client tickets before they're even created. So when you're tracking how much time it takes to resolve a ticket that is created by a client, Corey likes to get those tickets resolved ahead of time before the client even notices that there's an issue. So he tells the story of one of their network devices on a client network going down at 4:30 in the morning. They were alerted immediately, and they were able to resolve the issue within about 15 minutes. So before 5 in the morning, the issue had already been resolved, and the client was back up and running without any issues. Called the client in the morning, told them there had been an issue. The client said, wow, didn't even notice that there had been an issue. And that's really what you want to strive for in the types of client support that you're providing. So the second mantra, really moving to that strategic guidance for your clients. One of the things that is really helpful, so assuming that you're doing quarterly business reviews currently with your client base, pulling up that network map in Auvik and really talking to your client strategically about what they need to do to move their business to the next phase. So identifying devices on the network that are old or obsolete, or features bottlenecks that might actually get in the way of them being able to do what they need to do to grow their business to the next level. So sitting down with them, trying to understand what they're planning to do with their business over the next year or the next quarter, and then making sure that that network is in a situation that it needs to be in order to support those business growth needs. So I'm just gonna, if you'll indulge me, and I guess you kind of have to because we have control over the webinar at the moment, I'm just gonna read a quote from one of our current MSP partners speaking about how he is currently using Avec, excuse me, to have those proactive type discussions with his clients. And this is Gareth Johns from BCS. So Gareth speaking, we can better audit the switchgear, which means we can have a better conversation with customers about why it's not fit for purpose. It's not just a discussion about your switch is old, but actually here's some evidence of the bandwidth spikes that are now limiting your ability to be able to use that network. So it's the evidence to be able to sell, but not selling because you want to flog them kit. It's actually evidencing why they need it, the business benefit they're going to derive from it. Otherwise, they just think you're a salesman. You're just there to flog them another bit of kit they don't need. And to be fair, because a network switch tucked away in a cabinet in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years time still looks pretty, it's still just a box. Excuse me. It's like every other box, and it's got lights flashing at the front there, but that doesn't mean it's fit for purpose. So it's actually to give them that background of why you would want to be planning that in. And again, if you have a regular routine process for doing quarterly business reviews or whatever, you can tell the customer they're going to be replaced switches before they need to. You can tell them, we're going to be doing that next year. That switch is on the list for next year's budget. Can you make sure you put us in for $1,000 to replace that switch next year? It becomes meaningful because you can go, look, this is where we're at. This is your plan. This is what's happening with the line of business application. This is the reason why we need to be looking at these things. So Jackie talking again here. You can see how Auvik and the network map and looking at the configs and the situation, the state of all of the devices on the network can build into more of a strategic discussion as opposed to just a reactive, these are all of the tickets that we've resolved for you over the past quarter type discussion. And then thirdly, mitigating network risk. So Auvik out of the box again comes with auto backup of all of the configs on all of your network devices. So we often think about backing up data on our networks, and again, data was great in that area, but we don't often think about backing up the configs of all of our devices, specifically switches, routers, firewalls, and those types of devices. So Alex Hoff, who is our VP of product, likes to joke about or typically an MSP will have some backup gear in their office. And they'll head out to the client site with this backup gear to switch it out. And he'll say, why don't you grab a case of Red Bull on your way over? Or do you need to grab a case of Red Bull on your way over? Are you going to be up all night trying to rebuild the configuration of this switch from scratch? Or you automatically have that config backed up and you can just bring that new device in, restore the new device, and be up and running in about 15 minutes. So one aspect is the backup of the configs. The other is really showing you the diffs in the configs. So if you pull the device, there's something that's happened on the network, you're not sure exactly what it is, you pull up the device and you look at the configuration details. We'll show you every change that's been made to that device in real time. So every single change that's made is backed up. You can go backwards to see what configuration was changed, and it will actually show you the diffs. So as you can see on that screen there, the highlighted group of changes that were made. And another quote, a partner of ours, and this is actually Brad is a joint partner of both Datto and Auvik, who speaks about Auvik filling a huge hole in network monitoring, really providing that complete visibility and control over network infrastructure, regardless of the gear that, and again, on your client networks, but often as you're bringing on new clients especially, you'll be dealing with a mishmash of gear. and really trying to pull that all together can be quite difficult. So that concludes my portion of the webinar. If you'd like to learn more about Auvik, please feel free to book a demo with us. You can go to this URL here, and we'll have somebody follow up with you to get that set up. We also have on our website a really great resource, which is the 7 components of managed network service. So if you are starting to think about introducing managed network services to your clients, we do have a really great ebook on that topic, and we'd love to share that with you. So thank you so much, and I will pass the baton back over to Dado for their portion.
Thank you very much. So my name is Mike Palma. I'm one of the channel development managers at Dado. So probably have met a bunch of you on the road. We go around and we do a lot of presentations at events. We do some end user events on behalf of partners. And really our role is to get as much feedback from the channel as possible. We're not tied to sales or anything like that. And so this past year has been pretty informational for us in terms of the networking space. And one of the reasons we're doing so many events with Auvik, because there's a lot of synergy in the fact that we see the growth potential in managed networking. Our goal from the start is just to grow the channel. That's why we went out and acquired Backupify. You've obviously seen the merger with Autotest. We see the potential in the channel itself, and really it's going to grow in 2 ways. We're going to try to get more SMBs to realize the value that they get with working a managed service provider, but we also want to provide more and more services that you guys can go offer to your clients and really get the SMB community to realize this is something I should be outsourcing to a managed service provider. It makes sense for me. It's more efficient, and it gives you guys a way to add to your MRR, because the thing I hear on the road all the time is, margins are going down. There's less and less things that I can go out and charge to increase my MRR. So you can either stay stagnant or you can try to be innovative. And so, when we look at networking, Dado's actually been looking into it for the last few years. For those of you that have been to DadoCons in the past, we first started looking at our DNA, our Dado networking appliance, about 3 years ago. And we started looking into getting into the networking space then, but we didn't just jump to the market with a product. We really wanted to get feedback. So this took a couple of years of beta testing to figure out exactly what the channel wanted. And, our go-to-market message has always been, as a BDR vendor, we're going to keep your client's business up and running no matter what's happening. And the one piece that we really couldn't control was the networking side, right? We couldn't control that networking piece. And so we really wanted to provide a full, robust solution that you can walk into your client site and you could say, from the networking all the way down to the virtualization capabilities, I could handle that. And for you, you could handle it within one partner portal. It's very easy. So the benefit to us, once we jumped into this space of networking, the good news was we already had a strong base, right? We'd already been building the Dado brand and the support that's been really what's made Dado what Dado is today. We've got the 9 data centers. We protect over 340 petabytes of data. We've got 24/7, 365 support. That's great. And so all of these things allowed us to jump into the market, and we didn't have to build that. We didn't have to build that support base. The technology was there internally. And so our goal has been to build the best solutions for MSPs, from BDR to SaaS protection, all the way down now to the networking space. Because the truth is, networking right now is not really built for you guys. It's not really built for the channel. Really, you look at any networking product, it'll fall into one of these 2 buckets. It's either on the commodity side of things, which, these companies, and this is not to knock those vendors, it's just the reality of the space, right? It's really their goal is for mass adoption, inexpensive hardware, because they got to compete in that space. A lot of times you'll see features come out just for the sake of features, right? They're going to be able to say, we do X that our competitor doesn't do. And really, maybe it wasn't something that the channel even wanted. They just have to have some sort of differentiator. Now, on the other side of things is the enterprise space. Which is, we're talking Fortune 500 companies. A lot of times they have their own IT staffs internally. Most of our partners are not really dealing in that space. But the ones that are, it's a completely different ballgame. You're looking at extremely large budgets. You need really a dedicated, skilled support team just for the networking piece, because these are going to be obviously a lot more complicated. And so we don't see a ton of MSPs falling into that bucket. Most people are on the commodity side. And for the most part, the feedback I'm getting is they don't want to be there. There's nothing where the MSP really is made to show their value, and that's where we're coming in. We want to provide a product where the MSP plays an active role, has control over the technology that they're providing, and can help themselves grow and show their value and add to their complete managed services package. And so that was our goal from the start, and it's been a few years, right? And so instead of the cobbled together solutions that was mentioned earlier by Auvik, we're looking for, a single pane of glass, ease to manage these devices. You go to a lot of these vendor sites, and if you want to talk to somebody on support, you're going to some forum, you're going to post your question, and hopefully somebody answers. With us, it's still going to remain our 24/7, 365 direct-to-tech support, same support that we're providing to our BDR folks as well. And so that's where we fit in here. That's where we see the huge potential, because there's nobody looking at it through the lens of an MSP right now. And so what do MSPs need, in our opinion? The feedback that we get, right? What are they looking for? This is why we were in beta for 2 years, because we wanted as much feedback as possible. Again, starting with 24/7, 365 support is critical. You want to make sure the hardware is capable. You don't want to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to provide you this technology and then have to worry about the hardware. Pricing that fits into the standard MSP model. The MSP model is built on monthly recurring revenue. That's why a lot of folks have shifted from break fix into the channel, because they want to be able to generate monthly recurring revenue. And so we wanted a pricing model that matched that. Cloud management was key, something that was built in the cloud, not something that was an add-on. And then obviously margin, something where you guys could make recurring revenue and create the stickiness that everybody wants to have with their clients. And the truth is, networking now, beyond the comparison we made before between the commodity and the enterprise space, it really looks a lot like BDR did about 10 years ago. We saw some great innovations at the enterprise space with business continuity. But when we jumped into the space back in 2007, we wanted to bring that business continuity, image level backup down to the MS3P community through the channel, so that now SMBs know they have to work with a managed service provider to have a true business continuity solution. Really, whether they're working with Datto or one of our competitors, the idea is the market understands that. The market understands that, yes, I need to be working with an MSP, and that the competition between Datto and our competitors and all the rest has really grown the channel just in itself. And we feel like networking is going to do the same thing, because products and the delivery method of these products constantly evolve, right? I mean, backup became business continuity. Security became managed security services. All the rest, break fix, help desk services. So what's the next iteration of networking? The whole channel's trying to figure that out. In our opinion, we want to be market leaders of it. We see it as managed networking services. This is where things are headed. This is what's going to be standardized in the next 10 years, and you're going to see a lot of other vendors moving into the space because they realize in the space and lead the channel into forcing SMBs to say, yes, this is another service that I should be giving to my MSP, because it makes a lot of sense. And I mentioned, we started essentially on third base. We already had great teams in place. We already had our engineers working on this for several years. We've got our great sales team that supports it, along with marketing. And marketing, meanwhile, on our team typically means we're coming up with materials for you guys to use to your end users. Templates you guys can use, campaigns. We do webinars like this for end users that we can help you with. So our goal is to make it as easy as possible for you guys to spread this message. In terms of what the technology looks like, most people are familiar at this point with our Datto networking appliance, which is a router with 4G failover. But when we wanted to really provide a robust and complete networking suite, we went out and acquired OpenMesh. Instead of trying to develop our APs and our switches in-house, we looked for a company that obviously the product itself worked, but in terms of the culture and their vision, they were the only one at the time really understanding that maybe the channel is a way where we could be innovators. And we just accelerated them, really, because they were already on this path. And when we acquired them, we just accelerated that process. And so, they were already, focused on the channel, and we just pushed them along and said, yes, we can do this. So that's where the Datto networking story comes into play. And I think it's very important to understand that and understand why we made such a huge investment into this. And we're looking to really create the most MSP-centric networking product anywhere. And I'm confident that in 3-4 years, you're going to see a lot of vendors crowding this space because the opportunity is there. And some of the reasons why this makes sense for you, it starts with the partner portal. I mean, it's one of the things that we've always looked at as a differentiator. We're constantly updating the way our partner portal works. It allows you to go to one place, do all your billing, your marketing. You can do some training in there. There's support in there, kind of best practices, all these things. The forum is great, not just for, asking questions about the technology, but how are you positioning it? What are you using for margins? You find that in these forums, a lot of your partners and you might think of them as competitors. Most people just want to help, and they will provide answers, and they'll expect answers back, and it helps everybody. So those forums are a great place. Same thing with just the actual management of the devices, right? You're going to be able to look at all of your clients, look at the reporting, look at the alerts. There's going to be integrations there for some of your other tools. But again, single pane of glass so that you can look in there, check out all of your clients, and make sure that everything's okay. The thing to me that's one of the differentiators, and the reason I highlighted these two, is the network cloning and the template-based deployment. So essentially, if you're an MSP that focuses on a specific vertical, let's say small medical offices, and you get in there and you present your networking suite, and you've got all the configurations that you know are perfect for that type of business, that size office, you can then make that your template. So the next client that you bring on, it's going to be that much easier. You know exactly what all those configs look like, and it's going to be ready to deploy. And again, the ease of deployment, the just plug it in and ready to go is really going to help in your margin, right? Because if you're spending a lot of time with deployments and managing these devices, that's eating away at whatever margin you had. And so, we're not looking, you don't need to go out and get certifications like you would at some of the enterprise level stuff, nothing to install on site. And, I hear all the time, well, we could just spin it up in our own cloud, right? Why would we not do that? My question is, why would you do that? Why would you take on that burden when there's a product out there that could make it that much simpler for you? And so that's really what we're looking at. And in terms of ways you could sell it to your end users, use public Wi-Fi as a way to allow your clients to provide gather extra marketing stuff, right? We've got Facebook Wi-Fi, so you might provide free Wi-Fi as people are waiting in your waiting room, shopping in your store, eating at your restaurant. We all know how much information Facebook gathers. Now we're allowing you to gather that information, provide it to your client, and say, hey, use this for your marketing campaign. So now you're adding value just simply by saying, networking and opening their eyes to, yes, this is something that I could use. Of course, I want to provide free Wi-Fi because it creates stickiness. People like that with your clientele, but we could actually use this data to go out and acquire more business. And so you can be an expert in this, right? You could do the splash pad and make it so when they log in, it's got all the information of your client's space. There's a lot of opportunities there. The technology is going to be there. And if you are interested, either reach out to a sales rep at Data, one of the engineers. They're going to know a lot more about, some of the technology of it than I will. But the technology is there. The product that we acquired from OpenMesh is fantastic. And when we look at our data networking appliance, the growth in that product, even since we've released it, has been fantastic. And again, it's coming from the feedback from the partners. The world didn't need another router. They didn't need another vendor to come up with this space. But what the world did need was a product for SMBs that can provide redundant internet services. That's where this comes into play. It's not just to rip and replace another router. It's to say, well, what happens when your internet goes down? I have a product that has 4G failover, and I can keep your internet up and running. That's something that you want to work with a managed service around. You're going to provide all the support for that, and then and then you could provide the entire networking suite there. So that's a product that really makes sense. And if you do want to look at some of the speeds and feeds, we're there. I mean, our product is extremely fast, and it's really going to compete with anybody in the space that we're looking at, right? Any of that commodity side space where we're looking for differentiators. If you are somebody who's just going to look at that and check down boxes, again, we could definitely have a more technical conversation offline on a one-on-one basis to really do those comparisons and make sure that everything that we're saying is true. So again, we've got the access points, the switches, the appliances, and then most importantly, that cloud, functionality, allowing you the ease of management of all these devices, and giving you some more control over that, because we really are trying to change the way the channel sees networking and get them away from the model we've been dealing with for the last 10 years. And hopefully 10 years from now, this is the standard. Everyone is on to managed networking. This is what small businesses know they need to do. They need to reach out to one of you guys to provide this, and this is what's going to help the channel grow. So highly encourage you to reach out to anyone on our team for that information. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Matt Riley to see if we have any questions coming in.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Jackie and Michael. Great presentation. Couple questions came in around the recording. We are recording this. You missed that at the top of the hour, and we'll also be sharing this out with you guys. So keep an eye out for email for myself. Tomorrow morning, we'll have a link to the recording. We'll have this deck so you can review and share it on as well. Excuse me. So some questions from the audience. Let me check in with Jackie. Jackie, you still there?
I sure am.
All right. So from the Auvik side, what's really kind of the typical go-to-market strategy that an MSP typically does when kind of looking to bring on Auvik and distribute it out to their clients?
So that's a really interesting question, and there are a few of our MSP partners who actually do try to resell Auvik, but we really don't encourage thinking of Auvik as a revenue generation or even managed network services as revenue generation, unless it's with a new client. So when you're pitching a new client, you can say, we offer full managed network services. This is our fee. It's a real differentiator for us. Not many MSPs currently provide this. So based on where we are at in terms of the market and the adoption of a formal managed network services program, you can still use that as a differentiator. I think that will decrease over time. I think over time, this will just become a standard offering as part of a managed service. So bringing on new clients, you can absolutely build it into your package. If you're talking to an existing client and you say, hey, we have this new thing, it's called managed network services. If you'd like to add it to what we're doing from a managed services perspective, it'll cost you an additional blah. They will say, what? Don't you already manage my network? And it becomes a very uncomfortable discussion because clients believe that when an MSP says we're providing managed services, that includes managing those core network devices, so switches, routers, firewalls. And to date, most MSPs with their traditional RMM solution are managing the servers and endpoints, but not those core network devices. So it's a little bit of a disconnect in terms of what the client expects and what the MSP delivers. So we work very closely with all of the traditional RMM vendors. Many of our partners run traditional RMM plus Auvik in order to make sure that they have that full coverage of network management. And so what we really encourage MSPs to do is think about Auvik as an efficiency play. So using a tool like Auvik really allows them to address those network issues way more quickly, get ahead of them, think more strategically about their client networks, and just add that extra value.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for that insight there. And Michael, I'm going to spin it to you as well, kind of same question. What's sort of the go-to-market strategy that you've seen our partners, use over the last year with Datto networking, especially as folks may not know, there's a monthly fee that comes with our APs and switches. So how sort of have MSPs leveraged that new model to have success in the field?
That's a great question. Probably the question I get more than anything else. And it honestly is, it's kind of a culture change. It's a different way to look at it. And it has been a hurdle for some of the partners who are used to just saying, I'm not going to charge monthly. This is what it costs. And so, how am I going to change the way I've been charging my client for years? What I've seen creatively from some of our partners, you're either bearing it into the managed service cost, or you're actually charging an upfront fee that's going to cover the monthly, and then you're paying the monthly, right? So you're going to essentially capture the annual fee, calling it a licensing fee, and then you're going to just basically, carry that forward and pay us monthly. On the Datto networking side, people are all on board with paying that as a monthly fee. And so you're selling it as, I'm going to keep your system up and running. We're going to control the contracts with Verizon or AT&T. And so this is what that's going to cost. And so, the cost to you guys, $99 a month, there's markups there. But I also see folks like, was said earlier, you want to package it into your complete managed services package and then kind of burying your margin in there. Some of the larger folks are doing it as well. The sales of networking actually surpassed what we thought it was going to be in our first year. But I would say the caveat to that is it's kind of a smaller group of MSPs that have just completely ran with it. And so the adoption rate hasn't been as good as we wanted, but the success of the folks that did embrace it is far exceeded what we thought it would be. So there's a lot of creative ways of managing it. Again, that's one of the places where you want to jump on the forum and hear what other MSPs are doing, because that's where I get my answers from. Instead of trying to suggest to them, I want to hear what's working. And then that way I could give an informed answer. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Some questions on sort of the competitive landscape. How do you educate? I'll go, Michael, with you first. Like, how do you educate MSPs, or how they educate themselves on how data networking stands out against the competition, and what they're typically using right now? Things like, Cisco, Meraki, and things like that. How does data networking stack up against those? And how are we helping our partners educate their clients on the differences?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of sales marketing material in our portal available to our partners with some of that go-to-market message. The way I see it, instead of saying you need to move over to data networking, you sell the managed networking altogether, and you're saying, this is the future. I'm going to be able to manage everything. The way that the data is set up, it allows me to do a lot of things off-site. I don't have to come to your office to change these configurations and all the rest. It's going to be that much smoother for you. And then that's the reason why it makes sense. And most business owners are going to kind of get that. Instead of dealing with different vendors, I could just give it to my managed service provider. I know he's managing it all from one portal. The folks that are kind of upfront with the value that adds, most business owners are going to get that. Okay, that makes sense. You don't have to come out here all the time. So for a fixed monthly fee, within my managed service contract, you're going to manage all that stuff, make any tweaks you need to do remotely. Yeah, that makes sense. It's more of the story of, why do you need to be working with a managed service provider? Well, you're allowing us to do X, Y, and Z. Why can't we come in and do that for networking as well?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So a couple questions for the Auvik team. Jackie, so I have someone on here that kind of wants to see a little more in-depth of the product. I know it's not kind of the goal of today's session, but where can someone go if they want to see a demo, want to see the product in action, see, what the live, UI kind of looks like? What's the route that person would go in?
So for today's webinar, if they could go to the URL that we had on that last slide, and I'm just looking up now, it's auvik.com/own, so own the network, OWN 23. So the date of today, January 23rd. So auvik.com/own 23.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll make sure to share that link as well in the chat so folks can see that there. Makes it a little bit easier. Also, for Jackie on the Auvik side, do you have any integrations with other platforms like other RMMs, other NOCs, where folks can kind of ingest some of the data from Auvik to kind of keep that single pane of glass view that they try to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are. So I was hoping you were going to ask me the competitive question. So I'm just going to take one step back and just answer that one, and then I'll answer your follow-on question in the context of that. So Auvik is collaborative, not competitive. So given the stage of development of the networking market at this point, we are finding that we fit into almost every single other vendor's solution, which is really exciting for us. There's lots of opportunity. So we have built out a number of integrations already. So Autotask, we are integrated into the Autotask PSA, so yay Datto on that whole merger with Autotask. And ConnectWise, we are integrated with LabTech and both ConnectWise PSA. And we have a number of other integrations. We are also on the verge of releasing a whole bunch of different APIs that will allow other vendors to start integrating with Auvik as well. Right now, the request for integration list is incredibly long, and so we are trying to get through that list as fast as we possibly can. Obviously, working very closely with Datto in terms of integration with the Datto solution, and that's humming along. So we should have more news on that front shortly.
Fantastic, that's great. And then you mentioned Autotest, so I'll throw this over to Mike, kind of get the data perspective. Can you kind of just overlay like the vision of kind of data networking and our new ecosystem and sort of kind of the new open ecosystem platform that Datto's trying to pitch? Can you kind of touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually, the day we announced the merger with Autotest, it was the press release came out around 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was at the ASCII Cup in D.C., and I had a presentation at 10:30. So I didn't have time to change my deck or anything, and obviously everybody's waiting for me to talk about the merger because there was some trepidation there. We've always prided ourselves on the integrating with as many partners, vendors as possible, and keeping that open ecosystem. So people were worried that was going to go away. It actually has not at all. I mean, we were, at IT Nation, we continue to support open integrations, really with all of our products. We think it's good for the channel. Anyone that knows Austin at all, our CEO, knows that that's his commitment. And so that's not going to change, right? I mean, we're under the same roof now as Autotest, but it doesn't make sense for us to not continue that open ecosystem.
That makes sense. There's a few more here to wrap up. Question back to you, Jackie, around sort of a little bit speeds and feeds. Does Auvik monitor internet bandwidth, and what is using it?
So yes, we do allow you to see a number of different things on that front. I think the best thing for you to do to get specific answers, though, in digging into the actual platform, is to really see a demo and drill in on the specific thing you're looking for on that side of things.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, fantastic. So I think that's actually going to wrap up our questions from the audience. So I'm just going to toss it back to Jackie and Michael. Just any closing remarks to say before we let everybody go and give them 12 minutes back for their day. Jackie, you first.
Jackie, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the number of attendees who were on the webinar, and I'm absolutely thrilled to see so many people thinking about networking as a strategy for their growth moving forward. So kudos to all of you for thinking strategically about your businesses and being open to new ideas and concepts. Go team.
Go team. Yeah, and just, my closing remarks will just to add to that. The more of these events that I've gone to and the more conversations I've had, you're getting more head nods in the audience. You're getting more MSPs realizing the value in this and the potential in it. And so I'm more and more confident that this is going to become the standard, and that, the folks that jump on board early on are going to be that much more ahead of the other folks in the space. And so love doing webinars like this. Any questions, probably the best place is partners@datto.com. They will direct you to the right person. So thank you all very much.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.